Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Joanna if you've never been here before, and I am back from getting married. So a few months ago I told you guys about wedding planning and all the things that I was going to do going into it, and I have a few videos now that it's over, and I want to talk about in today's video all of the things that went wrong. Obviously, when you plan a big event, things are going to go wrong. For me, I was pretty lucky. Everything that went wrong before the actual wedding, which is fantastic. I think if there's a way, that I was gonna roll the dice and let things go wrong, I would have much rather had things go wrong before the event than during the event, because during the event would have meant that guests were experiencing it, something like that. So I'm gonna just get into it, talk about all the things that went wrong leading up to the wedding. One, because I think it's kind of fun to share and to know that not everything is going to be perfect and that's totally okay. But also two, so I can talk about what I would have done differently, and if you guys are planning a wedding or a big event, then maybe some of it will be helpful for you so you don't have to go through the same thing that I went through. So the first thing that went wrong was about a week before I was printing all of my own stationery, and I accidentally had a typo in the ceremony pamphlet with the wrong information about the processional song. So the song that I was coming out, walking down the aisle to, I accidentally wrote the wrong one. I wrote down the name that I refer to the song as in my head, but that is not actually the correct song. Turned out there is another song very similar that has the name of the song that I was referring to in my head. And yeah, so that's what I wrote down, not the song that played. I don't think anyone will have noticed. So I wrote down Everlasting Love, which is a great, lovely song. Thought about switching to it after I realized my mistake. What I meant to actually list is This Will Be parenthetical Everlasting Love, which is the song from like every 90s, early 2000s romantic-y movie. It's at the end of The Parent Trap. I think at the end of The Parent Trap, and A Cinderella Story. So that was the song that we went with for my processional song, but not the song that was listed. So that was the first thing that kind of went wrong. The second thing that went wrong was I was also making name cards for people, and in the printing of the name cards, I missed one typo of a name. Not a huge deal, because I was actually able to go ahead and print on a separate cardstock, so not the ideal in the sense that like it didn't match everything else, but was the kind of mistake that no one would have ever noticed to their naked eye other than me. So that was okay that went wrong, was able to fix it, not a huge thing. Both of those first two things that went wrong though are things that I could have avoided by just simply triple checking, re-googling everything as I was typing things up to make sure that the name of the song is actually the name of the song, but not the end of the world by any means. The next thing that went wrong was my sleep before the wedding. So I had this plan to get a lot of sleep leading up to the week of my wedding. I had a whole skincare regimen planned, but I did this thing where I decided to make my own wedding cake. Nothing really technically went wrong with the cake itself, but because I was making my own wedding cake, I was making elements of the cake every night leading up to the wedding, because when you're making a large event cake, you freeze portions of it, you make things ahead. Like there was a caramel in the middle, so one night I made caramel. The only thing was, and I'm a very experienced baker, I sometimes ran late in the night of just like starting to bake or starting to make whatever element I was, and so a few nights I ended up going to bed later than anticipated. In fact, the Friday night before my wedding was on a Sunday, I was up until 2:30 in the morning because I was frosting my cake and stacking it. Would not recommend doing that. And then actually the night before my wedding, this is going to be one of the things that went wrong later, but I also did not get much sleep the night before my wedding. Not because of nerves, but we'll get into that in a minute, so put a pin in that. So making my cake ahead of time just ended up, I didn't leave myself enough time every night to do it. I would say it wasn't a huge deal until Friday night when I went to stack the cake, but just definitely not enough sleep, so that's something that I would say went wrong. But quickly segueing to the actual cake making, of course, things did go wrong there, which ended up not being a huge deal because I had left myself enough time in advance of the actual assembly day on Friday to fix things, but things did go wrong. So, for example, I had originally planned to make 2 big layers of each cake. Now, again, I'm an experienced baker. Learn from my mistakes, though, if you decide that you want to do this, which I would not recommend to the average person, unless if you have made over 150 cakes in your lifetime. Do not do this at all, making your own wedding cake, and only do it if you really, really enjoy making cake and making event cakes like I do. 100% love that I made my own wedding cake, would do it again, but I would do it again with a little more planning. So I had made all of the cakes that were in my wedding cake before. I had 2 different kinds of cakes. It was a 3-tier cake, and the bottom level, or the bottom cake, was an 11-inch cake. I have never made an 11-inch cake before. My cake recipe turned to it perfectly, but where I went wrong was I had an 11-inch cake, and I had a 9-inch cake, and then a 7-inch cake. And I did not test the amount of cake that batter that I would need for each of the cakes. I knew how high I wanted each cake to be, but when I finished baking the cakes, say Wednesday night, I realized that I did not make the cakes tall enough to do the same number of layers for each cake, and that I had to make an extra layer, just a 1 to 2 inch layer for each tier. So that ended up setting me back a day, because then on Thursday night I had to go back and make an extra layer for each tier, so 2 different kinds of cake batter. Not the end of the world. But then Friday, I also ran into an issue that I had never made this size cake before, of 3 different cakes. I have the large KitchenAid stand mixer, and the large KitchenAid stand mixer ran out of frosting space. So when I went to make my Italian meringue buttercream, the buttercream was overflowing from the stand mixer. It was pretty comical, pretty funny. You obviously wouldn't run into this issue ordinarily, because you're never making buttercream for 3 cakes, filling plus that frosting. But it also meant that I then had to, Saturday, make extra frosting to finish frosting the outside of the cake. So that was why Friday night I was up until 2:30 in the morning, because stacking the cake layers and frosting and filling the cake layers and making the amount of Italian meringue buttercream was just way too time consuming. The Italian meringue buttercream took so much longer to come to temperature, the syrup mixture, because it was just a lot more water and sugar. And then mixing that with the, or aerating it to come to room temperature took much longer than typical. And then adding in the butter and dealing with the overflow issues was just a lot more than I anticipated. And turned out that it wasn't even enough buttercream to actually frost the exterior of my cake, so I had enough to fill it and stack it Friday night, or fill it and prepare it to be stacked Friday night. But then Saturday I had to go ahead and frost the exterior of my cake. Worked out okay, but would have again restructured it so I had a little more time. So I want to add a little context for this next thing that went wrong. So Friday morning was great. I had all of my elements of my cake ready to go, and I was going to get into doing the frosting after my nail appointment. I had a nail appointment at, I think, 11:30. So I went to go get a Japanese gel manicure. Now, I have not gotten a manicure in 10 years, maybe longer than that, since probably prom. And so I went to the nail salon. I got Japanese gel nails. Beautiful. Came out really nice. My nails were pretty long, so I didn't need any kind of tips or anything like that. Came home and started assembling some meal prep for what I was going to make for dinner. And I took my knife and was chopping a little too comfortably, and I chopped the tip of my freshly gelled pointer finger off. Not my finger, I did not chop my finger off, but I chopped the entire top of the nail off. And because Japanese gel is so strong, it just like ripped in like the most jagged, crazy edge, exposing part of my nail and, you know, ripping a raw edge of the gel off. And also because it was my wedding manicure, I wanted it to be really nice. I had a panic and ended up calling the nail salon and running back there, then had a meltdown because they put a tip on, but the girl who, the first girl who did my nails was like so considerate and really patient as I picked out my nail color and really took the time to carefully do each nail. The girl that went to fix the now broken nail, different girl, was just like really quick trying to get me out because, you know, I wasn't a planned client at this point. And so then I came out and I was like, oh my God, this one nail that's fake is so much longer than the rest of my nails. Fairly long, square-shaped nail, and then the rest of my nails were pretty consistent. To the natural eye, again, no one would notice, but leading into wedding weekend stress, I was having a full-blown panic about the way that the tip was applied, the gap underneath the tip. The coloring was a little bit different on a fake nail than a real nail. It was a lot. But yeah, I mean, all things considered, super glad I did not chop off my whole nail. I'm now a much more careful chopper because this is now probably like the second or third time that I've like cut into a nail tip. Glad that it's never been the full finger, but I really clearly need to pay a little more attention. Saturday, the day before the wedding, everything was actually really going super, super well. The second and last thing that went wrong, we showed up, we dropped off all of our DIY, the wedding cake to the venue, and everything was gonna go super well. We get to our hotel, and where we have decided to stay the night before the wedding. Our wedding, we could have stayed at home and just gone straight to the venue, but because I was going to get my hair and makeup done, have my sister, my cousin, my mom come to get ready with me, I thought it would just be nicer to do it in a beautiful hotel suite, so that way everyone could have breakfast together and be in one place without like any personal items. We showed up and the hotel gave us the wrong room. They fully booked out and they ended up giving us a room right on the street, on the second floor, which in New York City, if you know anything about city streets, you never want to be facing the street or like on the actual like street if you're on a low level, because it is just noisy. In the middle of the night, ambulances were coming. There was apparently a fire alarm going off or something like that nearby, so a fire truck came, parked right outside of our hotel window, and I'm a very, very light sleeper. So the night before my wedding, I was just in a full-blown panic because I had had very little sleep the night before, and now I was in a room where I could not sleep at all. Not to mention there were then issues because they put us in the wrong room, and so the layout of the room was different than what they had initially showed us. We had done a whole tour with the hotel to get the right room. It just ended up being not the best experience. So the whole night before the wedding was not calm or peaceful. It was very much me having a meltdown for a solid 10 hours. And then the morning of the wedding, I woke up and I was like, okay, get it together. It's fine. You look okay. You don't look totally haggard. Let's get you some coffee and let's go. And that's what I did. And actually, the wedding day was totally beautiful. But the one last thing that went wrong, which is, to me, it's my fault. But it also comes down to something very important. My dress was not tight enough. I had a strapless dress, and I fit it. When I was getting my dress originally, I really felt that I was between two sizes, but everyone in the store was telling me that I was a bigger size, and I kept saying, I think I need the smaller size. And when they would actually put me in the sizes available in the store, they would zip me into the smaller size. And I would say, okay, so I think I should get this size. And they would say, well, like, it's a little tight, and I think you need to go to the size up, because if you do this size, you know, these dresses that are in the showroom, people have tried on and they get stretched, so you should go to the size up. So I got the dress. It fit. I could zip it up, brought it to the seamstress, and I said to my seamstress, who is a man, I said, I think it just needs to be taken in a little bit here. And he kept telling me, no, you don't need it taken in. It's the perfect size. If you take it in, you're gonna have rolls. It's going to, you know, be too tight. You're gonna see that it's too tight in the back. And I pushed. I did push. I'm really not someone who likes to be told to do something else when your gut's telling you to do one thing, everyone else telling you to do the other. I like to follow my gut. But I didn't want to push a seamstress to do something that they didn't feel comfortable doing, because I was worried the dress would get ruined that way. And so then I said, okay, well, if you can't take it in, I'm worried it's going to be too loose. Could we add straps? Said no. He said it will ruin the dress. So I went back to get my dress. Hadn't been taken in, but we had done a hem. We had added cups. It felt comfortable. But I brought my mom this time, and I said, you know what? I think I really want a strap put on. I really wanted a thick strap. Because I don't like the look of like spaghetti straps added to dresses, because I just feel like they look a little cheapy. And the seamstress was like, no, a thick strap is going to ruin the dress. It's going to ruin it. You have this gorgeous dress. I'll sew on the thin straps, but you know, that's what I'll do. I'll do that for you. Which I wasn't thrilled with, because the back of my dress had a mesh panel, and if I wanted to tuck the straps in and wear it strapless, the strap was going to show through the back, which I kept saying, but I was kind of shushed. And so I went with it, and I said, okay, I have the straps now. If I don't like the straps, I'll rip them off the day of the dress, or I'll use a seam ripper and remove them, and I'll just wear the dress strapless. But I have the option if I want to. Went to put on the dress the day of the wedding, and the hook and eye at the top of the dress had fallen off. So my sister had to sew me into the dress, and as I'm wearing it, I'm noticing that it's just loose. Just the whole dress felt a little bit loose, and the only way that it felt fitted was if I fully like breathed out, which is just like not not a normal setting to be in. Went to start taking photos, and the photographer was like, you have a bra strap in your dress showing, because now the dress is a little bit loose, so I couldn't actually tuck the strap in and hide it without it falling down through the mesh. So after about half an hour of photographs, I said, that's it. I'm wearing the straps. I don't love them, but I'm gonna wear them, because then the dress will stay up, stay in place. I won't be worried about it. So I ended up having these straps that I didn't 100% love for my wedding day in 90% of my photos. But you know what? It's cool. It's okay. Again, if that's the worst thing that happens to me, not really that upset about it. But yeah, so that is everything that actually went wrong on my wedding day. We were also a little bit late to photographs, but that's more my fault. Just because I took a little extra time to get ready in the morning. So yeah, that is everything that went wrong on my wedding day. It ended up being a really perfect day. The weather was absolutely beautiful. The food was amazing. Everyone had a really good time, and my cake made it in one piece. And most of all, myself and my husband are really, really happy with how everything went. I haven't posted a ton of photos yet. Hopefully by the time this video is ready to go up, there will be photos on Instagram, because I've held those back until I got my full wedding album, because I wanted to do a full dedication to each of my vendors. If you guys have had things go wrong on your wedding day or a major event day, let me know in the comments below. Let everyone else know in the comments below, so that way we can all kind of chat about it. And yeah, and otherwise I will see you next time. Bye! And if you guys want to check out my last video, you can go ahead and click on that here, or click on my face to subscribe.